The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Years, this Prime Minister is not worth the cost of housing, which has doubled. But today, the Parliamentary Budget Officer released a damning report that showed that after the Prime Minister promised he would eliminate chronic homelessness, it's actually gone up 38%, and the number of people living in unsheltered locations is up 88%. This after he spent $500 million on homelessness programs. So if it costs $500 million for him to drive up homelessness, how much would it cost to drive it down?
Wow. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, whether it's the pandemic, whether it was global inflation, whether it was international economic situations, we've seen more and more Canadians suffering, including from the opioid and toxic drug epidemic that the Leader of the Opposition continues to attack and vilify. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we've invested billions in countering homelessness, and we're going to continue to invest in eliminating encampments and supporting Canadians and communities, in vulnerable communities across the country. The Leader of the Opposition solution is to do less to fight homelessness, to invest less in vulnerable people. That's what he's doing when he votes against our current budget.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Again, he brags about his billions in spending, Mr. Speaker. People can't live in billions. They live in homes, and his billions build bureaucracies that block those homes. In 2015, there were 284 homeless people in Halifax. Now, there's 1,211. Wow. There are over 30 homeless encampments in Halifax alone. 10 years ago, there were 3,000 Quebecers who were homeless. Now it's 10,000. Why is it that the more he spends, the worse things get?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government has chosen to invest to support Canadians through difficult times. We saw it through the pandemic, where we stepped up to put money in Canadians' pockets, money in community organizations, money in businesses and restaurants, in mom-and-pop shops right across the country, and we came out of it stronger economically. We restored full employment faster than the United States. We know that investing when people need supports is the right way to build for the future. Confident countries invest in themselves. What the Leader of the Opposition is proposing is austerity and cuts to programs at exactly the time that Canadians need them.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians are already living through austerity, according to a PBO report. It has shown that since the Prime Minister promised to eliminate homelessness, it has increased by 38%. The number of homeless people in Quebec has risen from 3,000 to 10,000, Mr. Speaker. Yes, true, he's spending more money, that he's making everything more expensive. But when will he recognize that big government in Ottawa will never end homelessness? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, no one in this country thinks that a Conservative government that will cut and offer austerity will help fight homelessness in our country. That's not how things work. It takes investment in housing that is affordable. It takes investment in programs to support people who are homeless. It takes investment in programs based on compassion and data to fight drug issues. This is the investment that is necessary. But he's just proposing cuts and austerity while Canadians are suffering. But we are here to invest in vulnerable communities. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Devastating reports in one day demonstrate the NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. First, we had Food Banks Canada and the Salvation Army that say record numbers are forced to go to food banks, that over half of people are worse off than they were a year ago. And now the PBO says there is more homelessness. There's more homelessness and hunger. He's got three explanations. One, he can blame the rest of the world for his mistakes. Two, he can promise more of the spending that caused the problem. Or three, he can own up and admit that he caused the misery Canadians are living.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservative leader likes to going around saying Canada is broken, we choose instead to invest in Canadians, invest in supporting food banks, invest in community organizations that are on the front lines of supporting vulnerable Canadians, investing in the kinds of programs that are lifting Canadians up, like the 2 million vulnerable seniors who are now accessing health care, dental care for the first time. 100,000 people in just 22 days have gotten dental care when the Conservative Party has consistently voted against it and indeed tried to block it both in this House and across the country. We will continue to be there for Canadians.